Welcome to the Kara's Cure Show, where we explore the cutting edge of wellness for our mind, body, and spirit. I'm Kara Sundlin. Today, we're talking about the hidden dangers in beauty products that actually could affect our health and that of our daughters, even fertility. Leslie Hart is an epidemiologist. She's an associate professor of public health at the College of Charleston and has recently published an academic article that really young women should know about. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I have a daughter who's 16. I see all the makeup. I'm usually trying to tell her to be careful about her skin. But much more than that, after your own fertility struggles, you have now studied what the exposure of these chemicals does to us, and you're very concerned.
Absolutely. So the beauty care industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and we know that they target young adolescent and young women, especially through social media. And there are a lot of chemicals that we need to be concerned about in these products because we use these products every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. And so, as you mentioned, I did have my own fertility struggles and started to think about, were there behaviors that I was engaged in, things I was putting on my body, putting in my body that could impact my my reproductive potential, reproductive health. And so I started to dive into this topic a little bit more and thought I would focus some of my research activities on looking at product use among college women, because this is a critical point in their life where some of the decisions they can be making could impact their future health.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of these chemicals some of these chemicals are really endocrine disruptors. So they mess up our hormones. You're talking about phthalates, parabens, and more. Are they in everything? I mean, are all of us getting too much of this stuff?
So that's a great question. There are over 1,000 different endocrine disrupting chemicals, and you're totally correct in that they interfere with the normal hormone activity. And as a result, especially if we're exposed over time, we can see reproductive impacts, we can see impacts on growth and metabolism. And so not all endocrine disrupting chemicals are added to beauty products, personal care products, and cosmetics, but there are some chemicals that are more common than others. So some examples are phthalates, as you mentioned. Those are usually added to products to enhance fragrance. So we can think of perfumes, or enhance the durability of a product. So we can think of nail polish to make it last longer. Parabens, you mentioned, another great example. They're added for microbial properties and to help increase the shelf life of products, commonly found in cosmetics, so makeup and lotions. Triclosan is another popular chemical that you may hear about with respect to health impacts. That's an antibacterial agent, so we see that in hand sanitizers and hand soap, other soaps, because we want to have that antibacterial effect. And then oxybenzone is another one, and that's a UV filter that's added to sunscreens and lotions, foundations, those sorts of things. There are also more serious chemicals. Formaldehyde can be found in some hair straightening treatments, and then per and polyfluorinated substances, or PFAS. It's a really hot topic right now. They're heat-resistant chemicals and have been added to eyeshadows. So not every chemical is in every product, but if you think about the variety of products that you use or one uses on a day-to-day basis, you're probably being exposed to all of them in a mixture.
So I don't want people to get so frustrated that they're about to turn us off and go, oh my gosh, I'm just going to be depressed. You do have solutions. I want to first talk about, specifically, you studied hormonal changes, and you say the hormonal changes can lead to reproductive problems like miscarriage and even endometriosis.
Right. Yes. Those were actually, so I've been studying product use in females, but there's lots of literature out there that have looked at relationships between these different chemicals, so phthalates, parabens, and reproductive impacts that we see. So low birth weight, endometriosis, poor sperm quality, poor sperm motility. A lot of these, the research has focused on single compounds, so just phthalates or just parabens, and we're finding some alarming health effects there. And then when we consider mixtures, which there really is a research gap in that area, I can't imagine that health impacts improve when we mix the chemicals together. So it's definitely something that we need to be aware of and get the message out, and that we, as you mentioned, can do something about. And so that's been the focus of my research, is to look at how many products, the frequency of use of these products among young women, and how much they know, and what we can do to try to raise their awareness and hopefully affect some behavior change.
All right, so tell us, what did you find? Like, how many of these products are most young women using?
So the average college female that we studied use about 8 different products every day. Some reported up to 17 different products. They're using them daily, sometimes multiple times per day. And as I mentioned, a lot of different products, so exposed to a lot of mixtures. The top products are liquid hand soap, which I think makes sense, a deodorant, face cleanser, shampoo and conditioner. Mascara was something that we saw. And I will say that our surveys were conducted asking about use in the previous 24 hours, but we surveyed students during the weekday. So I think we would see even higher counts if we were asking them perhaps after the weekend. So I think this number is likely a bit higher.
And then there were studies that said that once they actually stop doing this, adolescent girls stop using these products, the chemicals in their urine dropped.
Yes, it's a really interesting study. So the primary way that we look at exposure is by looking at metabolites, or parts of the chemical that our bodies break down. And it's these metabolites that are actually the active components of the chemicals that create the health impacts that we see. And we measure those metabolites in urine. And so this particular study looked at adolescent girls. So I think 14 to 17 was the age range. And they measured their metabolites to, I think, phthalates and parabens after engaging in their normal beauty care regimen. And then they asked these girls to replace their products with paraben and phthalate-free products for a short period of time. And after that time, they again evaluated the metabolites in their urine and saw a 45% reduction. And so just changing that behavior, switching to a cleaner alternative, really did make a difference.
Yeah. So this is where I want to give people some hope, because I have a 16-year-old daughter. Like I said, I'm thinking, oh, goodness gracious. I think about all the things that I put on. I mean, we all wear a lot of makeup and TV, different products that help me so I'm not too shiny for all of you at home, and all these things. Yeah. So what do you do so that we can be healthy?
Well, the first thing is knowing that these chemicals are there. I don't think it's widely known, and we have evidence of that from our research. So there are studies that have demonstrated that women, young women in particular, they are conscientious of their future reproductive health. They want to know about things that will impact their reproductive health. And then when we ask our students if they were aware if their products contained these chemicals, or if they sought out products that didn't contain these chemicals, 80% of our students had no idea. So the desire is there, but they don't know, which indicates that there's a gap, right? That we're not giving them the information to know what's in their product, to know what to look for, to even know what to avoid. And so I've been working with some colleagues and our students to actually test some campaign messages to try to figure out how we can better communicate this message to our students and hopefully create something beyond. But I also think these companies have a great opportunity to reach their consumers through social media and influencers. I mean, I know a lot of young people are they're seeking out the things that they want to purchase and buy based on what they're seeing on social media and the people that they admire and they follow. And so there's an opportunity to help communicate some of these messages.
So you use an app that you recommend. We've talked probably, some people might know about the Environmental Working Group. They tell us like which fruits have the most pesticides. They talk about sunscreens. So that might be one situation. The Environmental Working Group has an app. You're saying when you're shopping, you could just scan a product and determine just how dangerous it could be for your health?
Absolutely. They have a really great app, and I actually use it all the time when I'm shopping or I hear about something new. Just the other day, I took my daughter to get a haircut, and the hairstylist was recommending a product in her salon, and I pulled out my app to see how the Environmental Working Group rated it because it was something new that I hadn't heard of. And so you can enter the name of the product, and they have a really easy to decipher scale. So it's even color coded green to red. So green is like a good product, and red something you should maybe reconsider. And then when you dive further into it, they will tell you the chemicals that are at risk, what these chemicals have been associated with respect to health effects. And so it allows users to really make a better informed or more informed decision about what they're going to use. And if we can start making smarter choices and put some pressure on the companies that manufacture these products, then I think we can make a difference. But we need to create the demand. And to create the demand, we have to create the awareness that these products can be deleterious to our health.
So we all get attached to certain products, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit and say, like, what do you use? And are there things that work that are still going to hold our hair in place and have mascaras that won't do this, that don't have these harmful chemicals?
Yeah, well, you bring up a really great point because research shows that consumers, particularly women, we make our purchase decisions based on brand awareness, so the brands that we know, and then we're very loyal to our brands. And so it takes a lot for us to switch brands. So if someone's favorite company or brand's not offering these cleaner options, it can be a really hard thing to change. So me personally, there's a brand of cosmetics called Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSE Medics, that I enjoy their products. I use them exclusively. They make a wide selection of everything that you would need. So concealers to CC creams, to bronzers, mascara, you name it. They have everything. And they have a good mission, a sustainable mission behind them. They're a company that gives back, and they don't include endocrine disrupting chemicals in their manufacturing process.
Yeah, I do like Thrive. I've seen some of their mascaras, I'll say, even here in the television studios where we have to use stuff that really works. There's definitely a favorite of Thrive mascara. So anyway, Thrive, that's a good brand to know, all right?
Yeah, I think that's a good brand to know. The Grove Collaborative, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that group, but they're an online co-op where they distribute products. They have their own line, but then they also distribute products from other companies. And a lot of the products that they offer to their members and their consumers coincide with some of the best products that the Environmental Working Group rates as okay. They have a non-plastic mission, which is important because Phthalates are they're not only in personal care products, but they're also an additive to plastic and can actually leach from plastic bottles. So it's an interesting concept if you're thinking about the conditioner that you're using in a plastic bottle. Phthalates may not be added to the conditioner itself, but could be leached from a plastic container. So Grove Collaborative is low plastic, but they also carry beauty products, and they carry a lot of products that are cleaner alternatives.
So specifically, what kind of fertility problems have you found are linked to having too many of these endocrine disruptors in our products?
Sure. So endometriosis absolutely is a big one. There are on the male and the female side of things. So some of the phthalates research has been connected to decreased sperm quality and decreased sperm motility, leading to infertility issues. There's a low birth weight, preterm birth, and those are probably, there have been some follicle studies as well. A lot of the research in humans are epidemiologic observational studies, in that ethically we cannot dose a pregnant woman or a pre-reproductive woman with these chemicals and see what happens. So the way that they conduct this research is to look at exposure, likely through measurements in the urine, and corresponding health effects. And so those are the linkages that they're finding. There's been a number of research studies where there are experimental studies using laboratory rodents, so rats and mice, to further support these reproductive impacts.
Okay. So just to review here, we want to look at maybe the Environmental Working Group. They have an app. It's easy to shop with. There's, you mentioned a brand like Thrive Cosmetics, or even looking at some of our household products. There's also, I feel like there's a trend in this, and maybe it's getting there. There are some big companies out there like Beauty Counter publicizing that they're completely clean. And people are starting to latch onto that and say, hey, it's good for my skin, it's good for my body. Is it usually accurate when companies are taking that track?
It's an interesting question. So when it comes to regulations of these beauty products, the FDA does not require, or the laws in our country do not require FDA approval before cosmetic products and their ingredients can go to market. And so as a result, they're putting the liability and the legal responsibility for the safety of their products up to the companies that create them. And they're also relying on them to communicate the risks. And the way that they communicate the risks is through labels and the intended use. So products that fall into this category are cosmetic products, so the things that we're talking about today, makeup and our shampoos and lotions. There is regulation over products that are used therapeutically or for treatment. So antiperspirants, that's to treat perspiration, or dandruff shampoos. So there's a little bit more regulation or protection from a public health standpoint when it comes to those products. So this is a long answer to your question, but it kind of, we have to trust the companies and their labeling and their communication of the message.
Yeah, so then we have to be good consumers is what you're saying. But interestingly that you talk about this is sort of like when we all heard, oh, gluten is bad, which may or may not be the case depending on who you are. And then all these products started marketing, I'm gluten-free and this is gluten-free, and people, you know, there's been some confusion in that area. But you say there actually are products where these kinds of things are not added. Can you talk a little bit about that, where we might be in a safe realm?
Sure. So there are products that will list. Some companies are finding that it's advantageous from a marketing perspective if they state that their products are phthalate free or free of parabens. So you can go in that direction. You can try to decipher the labels on the, when you turn around and look at the back of the product. There are some keywords, and I believe the Environmental Working Group also has some guidance for that.
Keywords would be like, we'll see it if it says parabens or phthalates, like those are some of the big ones, or triclosan, like those words, we'll see those.
Yes, but there are, within phthalates, there are, 20 dozens of different types of phthalates. And so it can be, I'm not suggesting that companies are trying to deceive us or whatever. It can just be very difficult to overwhelming and difficult to decipher. And sometimes these chemicals have different names. And when it comes to the polyfluorinated compounds, those are can be really challenging to determine. So, it sounds a little bit hopeless, but I'm not suggesting that. We can make good decisions, but we can also, as consumers, try to push and encourage companies to be better and to be more transparent with their labeling. We can also try to help from like a political side to get politicians to try to advocate for laws. We're seeing some states starting to enact statewide bans of different chemicals, like California led the way in 2020 and banned about 20 different chemical ingredients from personal care products. Washington State recently passed some legislation that's starting in 2025. And if we look at our friends in Europe, there are widespread bans across the European Union countries where over 1,300 different chemicals are banned from cosmetic products. And that includes some parabens and phthalates and formaldehyde and triclosan. So the chemicals that we're talking about today. So there's hope. I think it just has to come from two directions. So our personal behaviors, making smarter choices and more informed choices, as well as from a larger systems solution.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I was going to ask you that because we watched that. A lot of moms might remember this with mac and cheese. We all grew up eating whatever, the big brands. And then all of a sudden these other brands came out, like Annie's, saying they didn't have all of these artificial flavors and colors. And we noticed that there were articles about companies, some of the big brands like Kraft, had different recipes for Europe. So it's not like they didn't know how to do it. I mean, they just weren't doing it here. So we really are, as far as a country, we're a little bit more lax compared to some of the other developed nations about what we allow in our food and in our products. So we could make some noise about that.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's where we have to start, and because we can only do so much, but even just small changes. So I think that it can make an impact. I think that study of the adolescent females really demonstrates that it's just a small impact or a small change in behavior can make a difference. So something I point out in one of my studies is that liquid hand soap was the most commonly used product among everybody. And I don't think that's specific to college students. I think that's widespread across many demographic groups. So one easy change that universities and schools and workplaces could do is to replace the hand soap in our restrooms with something that doesn't contain these chemicals. And so if we're thinking about the number of times we wash our hands a day, especially post-COVID, I think those system-wide changes can really make an impact to protect our public health.
Well, that's the thing. You want to make an impact. And you mentioned that when they did the urine testing, it actually showed a huge difference when they stopped. If you're not going to stop using all your products, like how many changes do you have to make before you would notice a difference in what you understand?
That's a great question. I'm so glad you asked it. And it's a little hard to quantify, but it leads me into a direction that we've wanted to go with our communication campaign. So I'm sure you're aware of the Dirty Dozen produce list with organic food. So the idea was if you can't go all organic, maybe focus your effort and resources on this list of the dirtiest foods or the foods most likely to have pesticides. And so by looking at the products, the specific products that our students use most commonly, we want to get the message out, because oftentimes these products are more expensive, and that's another issue with this topic, is that sometimes we can't afford the cleaner alternatives. But if you can't make an overhaul, or you don't want to because you have that brand loyalty, maybe try to find cleaner alternatives for the products that you use the most.
Okay, the products that I guess the products that actually touch our skin. I don't know if this makes a difference in your touching, but like if you're just using a little hairspray, is that different than when you're rubbing the lotion into your skin?
It does make a difference, actually. And there's been a number of studies to look at exposure for rinse off products. So think shampoo and conditioner that's just, in for maybe a minute or two versus the lotions that we're rubbing in. So the things that really impact our exposure are the total number of products that we use, the type of products that we use. So, the like nail polish versus eyeshadow and foundation, the frequency with which we use these products, and then how we use them. So that goes back to your question, rinsing off versus leaving on.
Yeah, you're making me nervous. I'm thinking of all the products in my daughter's room, mine too, but I know you specifically are trying to raise awareness about young people because of some of the fertility dangers that you have found. So this is really, you're going off, if we want to leave people with some closing thoughts, environmental working group, you can still go out there and use an app and find out some of the worst items, and maybe switch in the places after you've seen, like, oh, this is really red, let me move to something a little bit better. Any other closing thoughts for people if they want to try and make some small changes?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great place to start. And as you said, it can be overwhelming. So maybe make small changes. There's also a lot of information on social media and TikTok, because this is becoming a more commonly researched and commonly talked about topic. So there are resources available. You're just not going to be able to passively receive them. You have to be a little bit more active in seeking it out. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it, and you've certainly opened our eyes. So we appreciate your time. Is there, real quick, we've got only 30 seconds left, is there a place someone can go read the whole article that you wrote?
Sure. You can Google my name at the College of Charleston, and the papers are linked on my website. So that would be great. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yes, and you can follow me at Cara Sundlin. I'll try and get that posted. I'll put the links on my social channels so that you can find it easily. Have a great day, everyone, and be well. Thank you, Leslie.